Welcome to Trini Ting, where we sit down with the visionaries and voices who shape the spirit of Trinidad and Tobago. In the fifth and final installment of his Trini Ting interview, Jackie shares his thoughts on what more could be done to elevate the presence of art within the local cultural landscape. It's a fitting conclusion to a conversation grounded in passion, purpose, and a lifelong commitment to creative expression. Do you believe the visual arts are given enough recognition in the nation's development agenda?
No, it definitely isn't. But I guess one can also ask the question about other creative areas of activity. I certainly see a lot of coverage about literature, books, and so on, films, and so on in the press. As I say, the coverage on fine art in the press is superficial. It seems to be more in depth in those other areas, analysis of this novel or that book of poems or this film, right, and so on. But definitely not. I mean, part of it, I think, has to do with the average person who has received a secondary school education has had to read, an Naipaul or this or Michael Anthony, and has had to write essays on it, and so on and so on. That doesn't happen in painting, for example. They might have to do painting for the exam, but that ability to go and look and talk about and dissect and so on, that doesn't happen. So I think the average person feels very insecure in talking about art. They might say, I like it, I don't like it.
Okay.
But they can't go beyond that. And they're therefore unwilling to commit themselves to an opinion and so on, and will quickly follow whatever they see written in the press. So if they see an article, Hinkson is brilliant, he's iconic, he paints it, they're going to run with that.
Okay.
They're going to say, yeah, boy, see that fella Hinkson, boy, he's good, he's real good, boy, he's an icon, and so on. Without having looked at our work, anything at all. Also, in a general way, increasingly, culture has come to be defined by the popular art forms. I mean, let's face it, the calypso, the pan, and so on. Not to denigrate them,
Yes.
but that is where the definition of culture tends to end. Don't expect any government minister to be able to talk about my art. They may be able to give you a fairly informed opinion about Naipaul's novels.
Right.
Certainly they will be able to give you an opinion about Exodus versus Renegades, or Marshall versus the Young Brother, and so on and so on. But they're not going to be able
not on the visual arts.
in the visual arts.
So that brings me to another question. I mean, in many societies, the governments and the business sectors invest heavily in the arts as part of nation and society building. What do you think Trinidad and Tobago could do better in this regard?
Well, the private sector, I have received some generous support from BP. I don't know what it's supposed to be called in BP.
That's fine.
TT in my art and my books and so on about my art and so on. So I know there's that kind of support. I don't know how much, what is coming from where, how much, and so on. But take, for example, the National Museum, which has been sitting there for decades and decades and decades, badly in need of refurbishment, of, you go into a museum anywhere in the world and the temperature inside there is controlled. The amount of UV light coming in is blocked, all that kind of thing. Where works are stored, they're kept under perfect conditions to guarantee durability and so on. That hasn't happened here.
Right.
I see that a big renovation is going on now. I don't know about how good the quality of it, and I certainly don't know that when it's finished, what philosophies will be brought into the running of the place. I don't know.
Is there anything in particular you think the government or private sector can do to make art a bigger part of our culture?
Yeah, well, the private sector, as I said, perhaps is doing that. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. But I'm sure the private sector is, or something, is acquiring works of art. How well they display them is another question, and so on. What, to come to the government, the state part of it, I mean, every time I walk through, from abroad, I come through the airport, I walk down some long corridors with some long, long walls. And I say, wow, boy, some strong art would really look powerful there. And what do I see? Advertisement for some drink, advertisement for something, that is it. And you say, well, why?
Yeah.
Why? One area that I think could be of great practical help. You see, the quality art materials are hard to find here. You have to get it from abroad. That takes money, that takes foreign exchange, it takes all kinds of things. I think it would be great if things like art materials, if the taxes on them were removed, or things, practical things like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Practical things like that.
Right.
Another area of observation I make is that, take that Christ in Trinidad series that I did. Now, a number of people find it, I don't know if disturbing is the word. They're not comfortable with it. You take this biblical thing and you do it. And there will be hints of an allusion to a political situation here or there. So that means we ain't touching that. Those murals I put out here, I don't think corporate bodies are going to touch any of those at all because of the references to certain incidents and so on. Not that in them I was being judgmental or accusatory,
Right.
But just the fact that they are alluded to would leave them disturbed. So all of this adds up. I mean, but as I say, in the end, as a practicing artist, my focus is on you do your work. It would be nice if this, it would be nice if that, it would be nice, but you do your work. Don't spend any energy thinking about that and so on.
And as you say that, it's something I haven't asked you before, but what is the motivation?
In my case?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I have no idea. As I said, from my early teens, I just felt the urge to want to continue. And that drive just grew and grew and grew. But where it comes from, I have no idea. Whether it's a genetic accident, whether there's that plus other factors, I have no idea. It's not, which brings me to another observation. I often think about it, think of yourself as having some kind of gift. But people think gift is something, but you see, you have a lot of talent, but you have a gift, you have talent, and that is the end of the story. You now have to work to make that gift or that talent come to some kind of fruition. And I remember accidentally coming across a Derek Walcott interview on TV one night. And the interviewer was talking about his work and so on. And somewhere along the line, the interviewer said, "So, Mr. Walcott, this gift that you have," and Walcott said, "It's a gift, but it is an exacting gift." Meaning that even if it's a gift, or for lack of a better word, you have a gift, you now have to justify. It's like you have to justify being given this talent. And the only way to justify it is to produce work of quality. And that is why I imagine all artists feel a constant pressure to produce work of quality. Nulla dies sine linea. There we go again.
But I think that's a good way to end this interview. And all I could say is thank you for giving me the time, spending the time with you. And thank you for the art. Thank you for sharing your gift with us. I mean, I know you work hard, you work constantly, and I really have been blessed to be able to sit and spend the last so many minutes with you, hearing you talk about some of this. So thank you.
Hopefully I spoke with conviction and meaningfully. You never know how you speak,
I will say it this way, your conversations are as interesting and as enlightening as your paintings.
As it was, all right. Oh, Lord.